What is Rosh HaShanah to the Jew in 57 to 86? With gratitude to Frederick Douglass, of course. What are our apples and honey? Our prayers for a sweet new year, our comforting tunes, our dreaming of the future, the pleasure of beloved community. What is Rosh HaShanah to the Jew in 5786, in which we pledge the best of ourselves to the best of each other, in which we reach for comfort from every earlier version of ourselves, dissolving into every ancestor that came before us until we're in the dark, warm, wet of the garden? What is this year to us as we imagine what is to come and pray for its blessing when there have been just so many curses? What is Rosh Hashanah to the Jew in 5786 as the world shakes and burns around us? Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year, the birthday of the world, promises hope, a fresh start. But this year, hope for a renewed world feels immature. It feels unrealistic. Last year, I stood before you and said that we need to learn from Hannah, how she showed us that she can pray and weep in the temple, refuse to leave it despite the cruelties done to her there, the violence made possible by the ark, by which I mean refuse to surrender that which brings us strength and comfort from our tradition, despite harm done by those who claim to speak for us. But this year, we are now 2 years in to a world-recognized genocide in Gaza. This year, as ground troops have invaded and pushed Palestinians into a death march that looks like the long forced marches our people have known all too well, as the remaining Israeli hostages were forced to dig their own graves and die abandoned, a United States fascistic regime that now shamelessly shows us how much they want us all to die, that is trying to designate our trans kin as violent extremists, that seeks to trap and kidnap immigrants between peril and peril. A year in which we witnessed the lynchings of 2 young Black men in just the last 2 weeks. A world that is witnessing a war that continues in the Ukraine, a genocide that continues in the Sudan, the rupture in our own families and relationships to each other, jobs lost, plans put on hold. I don't need to remind you the weight that is on our shoulders, but I do need to name it. The endlessness. It is grueling. How do we stay in any temple? Our ancestors left us this gorgeous tradition with so many trapdoors and water slides. They etched this tradition into their bones, which we buried and promised to not leave in the land of exile. They left us this incredible cast iron pan of tradition, seasoned with continents worth of grandmothers telling you to eyeball it, you'll know what to add next. They left us this incredible tradition, and we broke it. We, by which I mean the people who claim Torah, the people we agree with, the people who are committing unrecognizable harm, we, the generation of the living, we and those who are alive and who inherited the same Judaism as we did, we who are one link in the chain connecting the generation before to what is to come. We broke it. And our ghosts are so angry. And they are so scared. We promised them never again. We promised not in our name. We promised, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? And when I am for myself alone, what am I? And if not now, then when? And then later we doubled down. And if not with others, How? They dreamed of us. Our ancestors made love in fields under the vice grip of slavery, knowing that you all would be born. They traversed land and sea by choice or by force, passing through checkpoints and lying to immigration. They withstood violence inside their own homes and at the hands of the state. They dreamed that one day we would be here, holding their Torah, understanding the secret messages that they left for us. They dreamed that it would get better, that they could leave us the tools that they needed and we would know how to work them and fix what we needed, that we would heal them through our action and sanctify their names. But instead, we broke it. We, our parents and their parents and our neighbors and their foes, we broke it. Our ancestors gave us a tradition full of chances to fail, and we fell for every one. This is the second Rosh HaShanah during a genocide committed by the Jewish people, by the Jewish state. So today I want to talk to you about endurance. How we keep on praying in the ruins of the temple. How we must. How we owe it to our past, to our future, and to the dignity of our present to keep going. I tell you this at the top. Our collective process of surviving this last year, and certainly the year to come, will be grueling. So I want to speak to the slog, the unending slog of horrors, of immobilizing grief and fear, the cynicism that floats up like byproducts as bone grinds against reality. As perhaps you have inferred, this is not a sermon about hope or how we're going to get free. This is about being in the midst, the disgusting, awful middle, the wilderness. This year, we need to honor the demand for endurance. We bear it all because we owe our ancestors and our inheritors, by which I mean our children and our students and our art, and the children and students and art that will flow from them. That quality of endurance in our tradition is known as netzach, which has a timelessness to it, an eternity. Netzach is among the closest to earth of the divine traits, the ones we might aspire to most likely perhaps get a glimpse of understanding. As J. Michelson teaches, netzach, often translated as endurance, stretches out longitudinally over time and distance, as opposed to hod, which stretches out often in this direction, which is glory. While hod reminds us what could be, netzach asks us to stay in what is. But the two promise us that there is always movement. And when we are in the middle place, we know it as such. As we begin, I want to speak directly to you who have endured too much, who know all too well about hanging on through chronic illness, through chronic pain, through disease, who know all too well how to endure suicidality for another day to make it to the next day, who know how to endure the grip of addiction to a transcendent future promised where the grip might not be so tight. You who know far too well what it takes for a heart to carry on, push through, live while living just barely. You hold the Torah here on this and in this time, and I fear it demands even more from you. Please teach us what you know. Endurance is an act of prophecy. It is knowing that there is or should be something different on the other side, that life is worth protecting, that this world is worth the fight. Palestinian poet Hala Aylan wrote, We owe Gaza endurance. Endurance might feel impossible right now. All relentless entities depend enormously on a few things: your fatigue, your hopelessness, your turning away. We belong to gorgeous lineages of endurance. We are all here because someone somewhere endured. When it feels impossible, find land, find breath, find each other, find songs and poems of endurance. This feeling of despair, of rage, of unreality is what helps us seek and preserve truth. Bearing witness is an honor. We witness so that we may tell the truth. Sumud, the Arabic word for steadfastness, it doesn't guarantee life, and it doesn't guarantee ease, but it is a commitment to existence, to a future, to a life that you are proud of having lived. At its core, to the Palestinian consciousness, is the unwavering faith in the people itself, a continuing forward as an act of faith in the world, a refusal to accept the reality that we find ourselves in. The word olam means most commonly forever, but you might also know olam chesed yibaneh from Psalm 89. I will build this world from love, as it's translated, or your steadfast love is confirmed forever. For the nerds who like Strong's Concordance, you can check out the frequency of the words and how often they appear in Torah. The term olam shows up to mean ever 272 times, everlasting 63 times, old 22 times, perpetual 22 times, and world just 4. I offer that our endurance feels like it is forever. We're just gonna have to keep doing this. But it is also on behalf of the world and our adoration for it that we have to keep doing this. And Anne Heberlein's biography of Hannah Arendt on love and tyranny, she writes, "Loving the world means taking care of life so that it can continue to exist. As we reflect, we must therefore," Hannah argues, "pay attention to what has happened, to what is happening, and what may happen in the future. We must never forget, but neither must we lose ourselves to nostalgia. We must be able to love the world as it is. In all its imperfection, we must live with our memories and remember what we have to be thankful for." So for those of you who have now fully disassociated, hey, stay wherever you went, or you're welcome to come on back. There's water outside, 5 things you can smell, etc. Or for those of you who have tuned out because this sounds in some way like spiritual bypassing, like, oh, does it hurt? Get used to it, keep going, it's all gonna be okay. I hear you. And the pain hurts, and it doesn't have to have a profound spiritual lesson embedded in it. But we need a reason to keep going. So maybe it is your love for the world, for the things that grow on it. Maybe it is your love of a specific person who grows on the world, or an idea of what the world could or should be. Maybe it's because the alternative is worse: numbing out, checking out, abdicating responsibility, losing connection with everything. Netzach is about length of time, not about pretending everything is okay within that time, but knowing that it stretches out far behind us and far before us, that it cannot be like this always. That is Netzach's specific power to move through this time. So I want to reach into the roots of Netzach with you, the core structure and configurations of traits of this divine quality that require us to think like God in that everything is all one thing and also everything else. By working with the shoresh, the root of our Hebrew words, we understand more of the facets of an idea, as we turn them in the sun, and the light glints off them in different ways. By reaching into the roots, I hope to bring up nourishment from the heart of Netzach that we try to endure through this middle time that the year calls for. Kohenet Katsira Lesser, a priestess, artist, and comrade in DC, does deep work with the Ilan HaSfirot, this tree of life, the emanations of the divine, as understood by our Jewish mystics. Her working definitions of Netzach is the gateway of endless possibilities. Working with the Shorashim, she offers a range of possible definitions: to endure, to make everlasting, to be victorious, to conduct an orchestra, to shine, to make everlasting. The feeling of needing to endure this time is so complicated. Endurance itself is so complicated, so we'll use so many words that we can find to understand the many parts and strategies for it. The first of Netzach, to endure. A quality of Netzach is understood as to endure, the quality of being in the middle, holding tight, of waiting and seeing, of staying the course. Netzach is endurance that stretches over the course of a long time, requires patience, and requires us to resist declaring how the story will end up, declaring the ending before we've arrived. This facet of Netzach doesn't know if it's going to work out, knows it's probably going to be hard. All the same, it teaches you that you're free from writing the conclusion and the summary of the story. It is just too early. Stay in the midst. Maybe late March 2020, I found myself having lots of conversations with many of you saying something like, I want to get off this ride. I don't want to do this. It was the shock of our new reality, what we realized we might have to give up, and our powerlessness amongst the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. And for those of us who lived through 9/11, the Iraq War, the 2008 recession, the COVID-19 pandemic, and this time, we know that feeling of drowning in history all too well. For the sake of our endurance, we must limit how far we stretch into meaning making. We are in the wilderness, and the sand stretches out seemingly forever. It is impossible to know if we are there yet. It is impossible to know what each of these moments means for us, or what coherent narrative will be crafted about this time. I would encourage anyone who insists on continuing to try to stop making sense. This is a moment when making sense is the hardest. We just know of what is true now. And hyper-specifically, we here at Hinenu are part of a blossoming Jewish left that, in my humble opinion, is one of the ways that we will smuggle out our ancestors' best hopes and tools for the future. There are so many different attempts bubbling up, so much blooming, and often the question is asked in our periodicals and our endless organizing meetings, what is this thing that we are building? Far be it from me to tell us to not dream of a future or build it now. But I want to encourage us to focus on the doing rather than the extrapolating, because we are in a moment of fairly intense incoherence, living through actual history happening around us. And to structure a strategy while we are still experimenting and gathering pieces is like expecting Rabbi Akiva cackling and crumbling in the remains of the Holy Temple to be able to imagine you sitting in this Quaker meeting house in jean shorts. So a tool for Netzach: own the feeling, wait on the meaning. History is what you describe after it's over. Another quality of Netzach is understood as causing something to be everlasting, the he feel for, again, the nerds, of investing in the infrastructure needed to support the everlasting presence of a people, a story, a value, a truth. This emanation of Netzach believes not in the ways endurance is painful, but in the ways we build things to last, to patina, to season over time. When I was 14 years old, firmly obsessed with my grandmother, Gail Graham of blessed memory, I remember sitting at the dinner table realizing that she was also alive in New York at the same time as the Shoah, as the Nazi Holocaust. In school, my days were spent immersed in graphic images of mass graves and forced starvation, of the sunken faces that looked like mine and my classmates. See, we were subject to the Holocaust education of the 90s that felt that if children weren't traumatized early and often, they would forget the greatest mass suffering of our people. Then, that night at dinner, I realized that while Jewish homes in Eastern Europe were being ransacked and our people being murdered, my grandmother was crocheting socks and hats for the US troops overseas. And when I put this together, that these strands of history could be happening at the same time, I could barely breathe. How could I fault Graham now that I am living a lifetime parallel to hers, quietly knitting socks and shouting into megaphones, inert in the face of mass genocide, this time even closer to home, the gun in our own people's hands? This will be a season of the Rosh HaShanahs that our descendants tell stories of, one in which the frame keeps shifting from hope to despair to accountability to revenge to understanding to complexity to simplicity to apocalypse to the world that is on her way. If I could behave as the ancestor I want to be now, it would be with compassion for my grandmother. Just like me, living across the sea from a genocide, with tears for my child self, realizing how cruel the world is, and the courage that those two beings offer me. Our ancestors know from waiting in the narrow place. We love to tell the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim, leaving Egypt, but we really do zoom through the first 200 years or so of enslavement in Egypt, wherein the people feel totally tricked, abandoned, forgotten. We know from being in the midst, crying out from pain and demanding to be heard. So you can, however you can, sink into the earth so that you can grow. Instead of pushing through the snowstorm, root deeply in its midst in order to grow into the future. In a moment, I'm going to share a line that depicts the horrors of the Palestinian genocide on children. This is an invitation if you need to leave the room. It is short, but it is enough to shatter our very souls with the harm that this world has witnessed. And you need to tend the fence around your heart. So feel free, don't be shy, to take a break in the hallway in this time. A quality of Netzach is understood as to be victorious, to mark wins even amidst the war. This is easier said than done. Certainly, we know as we live along multiple endless wars. How dare we? How dare we? How dare we mark wins? When Palestinian journalist Tahir Herzala writes, "The stories we are hearing out of Gaza are heartbreaking and soul-crushing." A 10-year-old child in Gaza City was asked what his hopes are for ending this war. His response, "I only hope for one thing, to find my dad's body and bury him." This is the extent of the boy's hopes and dreams, to find consolation in burying the body of his father who was killed at a GHF distribution site. This child endures simply to bury his dead. How dare we mark wins? How dare we? When just 1 month ago, many members of this holy community gathered with 300 other Baltimoreans to pray with Kilmar Garcia Abrego and his wife, Jennifer Vasquez Sora, before watching him walk into the George Fallon building, only to be again ripped away from his family. But before being taken away, Kilmar said, "Promise me you'll keep fighting, praying, believing in dignity and liberty, not just for me, but for all." Our neighbor asked us to keep fighting, to be victorious. How dare we mark wins when it feels like a pebble against the tornado? By rooting into Netzach, we will become consumed with the knowledge that we will win, and that the small wins and the big wins alike are propelling us to ultimate liberation, to victory. So when the small wins come, an Enoch Pratt union contract, homicide rates in Baltimore that have fallen 40% since 2020, memorize them. Imprint them on your body, tattoo them on your shoulders. It gets us through the losses, and it gives us a map of the feeling that we are trying to get to. So you can, however you can, bless the wins. These words from Marge Piercy in The Art of Blessing the Day. This is the blessing for a political victory. Although I shall not forget that things work in increments and epicycles and sometimes leaps that half the time fall back down, let's not relinquish dancing while the music fits into our hips and bounces our heels. We must never forget, pleasure is as real as pain. And a last quality of Netzach, understood as conducting an orchestra or leading a song. So many of our psalms begin addressed to the Menatzeach, the conductor in the temple. This time requires the Netzach that sustains ourselves with art, with story of other times and other places of peril and survival, of peril and disaster. Netzach allows us to titrate despair, to take it in small ways so that we can digest it, so that we can continue moving, so that we can endure. With enough art to help us endure through the narrow straits, we will tell one another stories and sing one another songs to make us bold enough to continue on. Pleasure is an endurance practice. So wherever you can, however you can, sing to the artist, care for the caretaker, make art because the world needs it to keep going. We are in the middle of learning how to cry and pray in the temple, and that is why it feels so bad. Chana did it all at once in a cathartic movie moment that is probably the cleaned up version. We are in the part where the priest Eli is shouting in our face and tears are screaming down our cheeks and we're misunderstood and we're waiting for the baby. We're in the awful middle. Beloveds, you just have to keep going. You have to keep going. We have to keep going to get to the end where we invent a new way to pray. We must endure because we owe Palestine endurance, because we owe Torah endurance. We owe our children endurance. We owe the world endurance. I am sorry that it is broken. I am sorry that you have to watch human beings live through impossible pain. I am sorry that you have had to endure impossible suffering and then still go to work. I am sorry the future promises alongside its delights and its joys, glimpses and glimpses of the face of the divine, also such great suffering. I am sorry that you need to find a way to Netzach, but you must. You simply must, because your life, this life, matters too much. Because this planet matters too much, you must find a way to stay alive, even if it is the success of making it just to another day, borrowing the netzach of another to get to the next one. You must find a way to keep fighting back the fascism and nihilism that decay that knocks against our windows all night long. There is no other choice than the hard one. I'm sorry. But it is in the doing we find the meaning. We broke so much of what our ancestors left us, and they are so afraid for what is to come for us. But our ancestors could imagine us and what we would do and what we could do. And so because they knew we were coming, they built a tradition inextricable from the way to save itself. Judaism is created to regenerate, to reimagine itself, to reinvent and to meet the time. It allows us to endure. It teaches us how to fix the broken plow, then plow forward. We broke it, but our ancestors also left us a task, which was keep fixing it, or trying. That is the work we must put our shoulders against and push forward. To do the work of Judaism is to endure the brokenness, even if we don't see the fruits of its repair, to be scolded to pray a new way without knowing that all those to come from us would actually be shaped by our corrections to a broken tradition. What is worth enduring for? The world. The imagination of what could be different, the faith that it could be, the chance to see it change. It won't be a slog all the time. I cannot promise you if you will win or if it'll work, that you'll see the fruits of anything. You might. The doing is the prayer and the praying is the point. We owe the world endurance because of our love for the world. May you be blessed with creativity and courage and stubbornness and humility and suppleness and rigidity and hope and despair held gently and collaboration and generosity. May you be blessed with the strength to endure. May you go from strength to strength and see a world redeemed. May you and all who you love and all that you love be inscribed in the book of life for goodness and for peace in the year ahead. Amen.